Alright, hello boys and girls, welcome to Homeschool Academy. This is week number 15 of 4th grade Science and Technology. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about conductors and insulators, okay? So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to know what a conductor is and what an insulator is, and be able to differentiate between conductors and insulators and potentially give us examples about it. What are examples of conductors and examples of insulators? We are going to be talking about those kind of things today. So let us try to get started. All right. So what is a conductor? A conductor is a material that allows electricity or heat to pass through it. So we have heat conductors and electrical conductors. All those things are going to allow heat to pass through them. And a quick way to know what a conductor is if you have your kettle, that, you put your kettle on a stove. Well, if you turn on the stove and you were to touch the kettle, because the kettle is metal, well, heat is going to pass through that kettle. You touch the handle of the kettle, if the handle is metal, is going to start becoming warm as well. But if the handle is not metal, if the handle is an insulator, the handle is not going to get warm. So it means that there are materials that will conduct heat, and there are materials that will not let heat pass through them. Well, guess what? That's what conductors and insulators are. So a material that's going to allow heat or electricity to pass through it is going to be a conductor. The atomic structure of a conductor contains loose electrons that can flow from particle to particle across the entire surface of that object. If an electrical charge is transferred to one aspect of that object, that charge is going to be distributed to other parts of the object because of this flow of electrons. So examples of electrical conductors will include most metals like iron and aluminum and silver and copper, and even some solutions like some salt solutions, like ionic compounds dissolved in water, even the human body. And most of these are also heat conductors as well. Alright, what about insulators? Insulator will be a material that does not allow electricity or heat, to pass through it. An insulator behaves in an opposite fashion to a conductor, and the atomic structure of an insulator does not contain loose electrons. What are some examples? Some examples are going to be like wood, like cloth, like rubber, plastic, dry air, and all of that. Now there is another type of materials that we can call semiconductors. Semiconductors are going to be materials that are not as conductive as metals, and they are not as insulative as non-metals. So they are like in the middle. An example is going to be silicon and germanium. And they have slightly different atomic configurations. When you get to advanced studies, you're going to see those differences in the study of chemistry. So these different kinds of materials establish for us what we can call the conductivity continuum. What's that? What's the meaning of that? So as you go down this continuum to the left, you are going to see things are going to become more insulative, more non-conductive. And as you move over to the right of this continuum over here, you're going to see that materials are going to become more conductive. In other words, the further to the right of this continuum an element of the periodic table is, the more conductive that element is. The further to the left of this continuum an element is, the more insulative the element is. And if the element is somewhere in the middle, it's going to be like a semiconductor, like silicon and germanium. Okay, so that's the difference between conductors, insulators, semiconductors. And you can see different kind of conductors over here: human body, water, carbon, mercury, iron, aluminum, copper, silver. Guess what? What's the most conductive here? It's going to be silver. What is the least conductive here in this continuum? It's going to be rubber. You got it right. So what are conductors? Alright, you got it. What's the difference between a conductor and an insulator? Alright, can you journal that for me? I believe you can. So turn to your workbook and try to journal that based on what you've learned with me today in week number 15. I want to thank you, boys and girls, for joining me today. Remember, God cares about you, and so do we. Bye-bye.
I'll be your hero's buddy, and as you study with heroes born, I will be your friend. So don't you